Okay. I'm actually going to ask everybody to mute your personal phones if you can, because apparently when I go to mute, I get muted also, and that's not a very productive way to host a webinar. So I'm going to keep everybody unmuted, but if you would please just mute your own phone or device, that would be really helpful. Thanks for folks for letting me know. Okay. So again, just getting started. My name is Heidi Gold. I'm a business analyst with SimTech Solutions. Also on the call from the team, since you're not muted, you guys can go ahead and introduce yourself real quick. Matt, you want to start?
Yeah, Matt Simmons, president of SimTech.
This is Eddie Biber, lead developer at SimTech.
Nathan?
I think that's all we have from SimTech today.
Oh, okay. I thought Nathan was on as well.
I'm sorry.
Muted. Following instructions and muting himself. So the SimTech team is here to kind of walk through the point-in-time technology and answer any questions that may come up. The webinar is being recorded, and I am going to ask folks to stay on mute. If you have questions that come up as I'm going through this, please go ahead and use the chat. Matt's going to be monitoring that, and I'll stop periodically. There are some natural breaking points to address specific questions before moving on to the next section. I want to welcome everybody to the webinar today. We have some old timers, people who have been with us since the beginning, as well as some new regions and people checking us out for the first time. So I'm going to go through a lot of material today, and then we can always follow up with additional questions offline. This, I think, is the 6th year that SimTech has had a mobile app for the point-in-time count. There's a lot of history behind it. Started out leasing it to HUD, and then we took it on our own and continue to develop it and refine it. Last year, we had more than 30 regions in 13 states using the technology, and everybody who used us in 2017 came back, and we are in the process of bringing everybody back for 2019, along with several new regions, and we're excited to have everybody on board. Basically, the technology that I'm going to share with you today has two sides. There's the mobile app where data is collected and entered, and the command center where the activity is managed and where the data lands and where the data can be managed in real time and after the count, where it can be filtered and exported, and that's really where all the magic happens. So today I'm going to go through some of the features on our point-in-time info site. I'm going to walk through the app itself, and then we'll end up in the command center, and I can show you those features. And I'm going to also generally talk about how you use the technology in the planning stages, which folks are in right now, while you're actually executing the count, and then following up with the count, cleaning up the data, using the data for all sorts of good things, and of course, generating your report to HUD. So this point-in-time site is really the go-to site for all information related to the count, to what we've got to offer, to what HUD is putting out. The app itself is available on Google Play or the App Store, wherever you get your app. You can just search for it, and we'll talk about how you download and register an account.
Oh, crap.
I'm sorry, whoever just said rat. Can you go ahead and mute yourself? We'll try to pull you back and fix your day. We have a lot of support resources here available, and we do continue to update these as things come in from HUD. We add our own resources that you can print out or refer to during the count. We have a lot of FAQs once you're in the count itself. We also have this page of FAQs, which we've built up over the years as we've gotten a lot of questions about the app itself, about the hit count, about what's included in our offering, how much it costs, all of that. So we have a lot of information posted here with a lot of links behind it to kind of check out the full range of what's available. Some details also found here on our pricing page, and then we have additional services. There's a lot to it, and I'm going to go through a lot of these as well. So a lot of those features. So in the planning process, county administrators, I assume most of you on the call fall into that role. We're going to be talking about the scope of your contract, what's involved, and then coming back and doing a train the trainer and accessing some of these resources that are available to you. So are there any questions about this site or what's available, or sort of the history of what we're doing? Anything in the chat, Matt? If not,
no, nothing yet.
Okay, cool. I'll go ahead and move on. So as I was saying, the app itself is available from Google Play or the App Store, wherever you get your apps. It is also available as a web-based version, which is helpful if you do have paper surveys or if you have people entering data offline or even in shelters or other projects. Okay. So once you download the app and you go to register an account, people will enter their first name and last name and their cell phone number and a password, and you'll see why that cell phone number is important. And this is a good thing to do with your volunteers ahead of time. You'll be able to send out information and encourage everybody to download the app and register an account. I've already registered, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in. And then what you see here is what your users will see, what you will see, and you'll go ahead and they'll choose account. They'll get to this screen where they'll enter a setup key. The key we give everybody is demo, and you can do that now or later this evening to see how it all works if you haven't done that already. But each region has its own setup key, and that's what connects the data from the app to that particular region in the command.
I have a good one.
If there's a question, it might be helpful to put that in chat, and then I'll definitely get to that. So if you are using count teams, which is a feature that I'll show you what that looks like in the command center, this is where a user could assign themselves to a particular team. So if you have regional leads, you can have specific teams added here, and we can talk about that if that's a feature that you think would be of value to your area. For now, I'm going to go ahead and skip it. Your users will get a little pop-up that says what region they're counting for. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And then the next screen will have the list of surveys that are assigned to a specific activity. So the setup key will also be specific not only to your region, but also to the pick count for 2019. So the different activities can have a different array of suite of surveys available. Sheltered survey, observations, tally, and unsheltered survey are templates that we use, but they can also be customized. Many of the questions are hard-coded to the HUD report, but we can do some additional questions, add some, remove some, change some labels, etc. I'm going to go ahead and select the unsheltered survey. Everything, the way the data is collected, builds the report itself. So answering this question right here about whether it's a single person or a household, it's the same survey, but if you were to select household, what it's going to start with is how many people in the household are going to be surveyed. And then when you enter, it loops through that survey that number of times in order to pull the household together and get that household section of the report. So the next step is it's going to use the geolocation services in the phone and find where that survey is. That happens to be my home. I'm working remotely today. You can also enter an address if again, if you're doing this off-site or someplace else. And that looks like that. I'll go ahead and do a next step. And you can see in the household surveys, it starts with the head of household. So it's always going to start with the self. These questions, where were you sleeping on the night of the count? This, again, is built directly off of the HUD specifications. So the answers that correspond to the HUD definition of homeless and who should get counted, those people get counted in the report. If somebody selects a housing situation, you can still go ahead and do the full survey. You may want to collect that information, but that data is automatically going to be excluded from the report. So you could do a whole study just on people in the hospital, even if they're not going to be included. And you don't have to worry about including or excluding that data. We take care of it ourselves. I should say the developers took care of it for us. Also in development right now, that's going to be live shortly, is we are going to have the ability to do some conditional logic and make some questions required. So the way that that's going to most impact certainly the template is we are going to be moving this age range question up to the top and making it required. The reason being is that if the data doesn't know if it's a child or a youth or an adult, the report literally doesn't know where to put them. So HUD doesn't require the full date of birth or the age, but it certainly, we need to know if it's a child, a youth, or an adult. So we're going to be moving this question up and making it required. First name, last name, initials also not at all required by HUD. We've included those so that you can integrate this data, look at it, use it with HMIS or for coordinated entry or to document chronic status. We know that people use the PIC count for a wide variety of purposes, so we added the ability to capture at least some identifying information. These are all the HUD responsive. We get into a homelessness history. Again, these questions directly inform whether or not somebody is considered chronic or not. You're never asking somebody if they're chronically homeless. You're asking about their homelessness history, and then you're asking about disability questions with the follow-up questions of whether or not it's a long-term disability that impairs their ability to hold down a job or live independently. We did add a couple of questions here. The question of how long have you been here, it asked in one way or another, seemed to be really high demand. A lot of regions want to know who they're serving. So we added that to the template, but these are flexible. They're not required by HUD. So we have the health questions, veterans questions, DV question, and then the ability to add notes. And at the end, you can go ahead and either submit that survey, and now you can see I'm on the next person in the household, and it's asking me the same questions. At the end of it all, you can save off a draft, and then you can see you come back, and at the end you have drafts here. You can go ahead and open them. And once you open it, you can go ahead and submit it. I saw that there were a couple of questions that came through around customization of surveys. I can look at that chat.
Yeah, do you want me to bring that up? So this is Matt. So Julie King had asked if there's a limit to the number of questions that can be added for a survey, for a custom survey. And the answer to that is no. You just have to be cognizant that the more questions you have, the longer that survey is going to be. So it might be a fair amount of scrolling. But we work, if your region wants to have custom surveys, we would just work with you individually to get those added. That was the first part of her question. And so out of the box, everyone gets the standard question sets from HUD. And then depending on how custom you want to go, that's when we work together to figure out what the time and effort is going to be to add those. But her follow-on question Julie had was if there's the ability to make additional questions required or not required. And the answer to that from last year was no. The answer to that for this year is going to be yes. So that's something you're going to have to just tell us the questions that you must have answered, and then we would make them when they go to submit. If they're blank, they would just send a message back up saying, "Hey, you have to fill this out." And then the last thing you asked, you got a few going here, was can an individual user see how many surveys they have submitted? In the command center, yes.
So when you hit submit survey, that data leaves the phone altogether, which is really good for security issues, but it is one-way data. The individual user doesn't get that feedback on the app at all. But in the command center, which I will move to, you can see you can do a lot of user management and survey management by users. Julie, they never had access to the submitted surveys because once the data leaves the phone and it's submitted, you can't do anything with it. And what's also really important about that is if somebody makes a mistake, if a volunteer makes a mistake for some reason, they realize they just surveyed somebody who somebody else had already surveyed, right? If the mistakes are okay, they need to then just call in that information to their regional lead or whoever can access the administrator who has access to the command center where that data can be edited. Okay. Yeah, good. All right. Are there any other questions about the app itself or the surveys? The sheltered survey generally is typically exactly the same as the unsheltered survey, with the exception of in the command center, you have the opportunity to, and it would be required, to add organizations and projects. And this just helps with typos and spelling variations, things like that. So it's easier to work with the data, if we're using standard drop-downs. But otherwise, it basically becomes the same. We've removed the question, where were you sleeping on the night of the count, because we know where they were sleeping. And the observation tally is a very brief, again, just the most critical information. In addition to age, HUD asks for this other demographic information, gender, race, and ethnicity. If the count administrators don't have sufficient data in these categories, HUD asks that we extrapolate. So you do want to try to push your volunteers to get this data, if they can, in all of the surveys. Okay. All right. We also do have built in, and you can see it here, so I'll just speak to it for a minute. The several areas have been adapting the technology to help respond to disasters and triaging people, understanding where people are coming from, what's going on with their homes, et cetera. So we've adapted a survey for that as well. That's what that is. Okay. If there are no questions about the app, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the command center. So again, from the point in time site, you can go ahead and log into the command center. It's bringing me right to the demonstration data store because that's where I've been all day. As administrators, once we have a contract, whoever we have a contract with, we go ahead and we set up your region in the command center, and we create you as an administrative account, and then you can give access to those people that you think should have access. We have administrators and managers, and I'll show you what the two different roles can do. I would not recommend broad access to the command center, although I do think it's helpful for your regional leads to know what's here and to understand how you're going to be working with the data. I think it will help them do their job more effectively. So you can see we have a whole lot of activities here within the demo data store. Folks that are with us for the second or third year will see their various pick counts here. I'm going to go ahead and select the demo region. That's our demo region. This is the dashboard. So you'll be able to watch this in real time. You'll see these numbers going up throughout the night of the count, and you can pay attention here as well. I used to tell people to really pay attention to this unknown age because, as I said earlier, without an age, we don't know where to put the response. But now that that's going to be required, we won't have to worry about it so much. The other advantage to making it required is it's going to then also only show questions for adults to adults. So the kid questions, kids won't be asked if they're a veteran, for example, which is really, really nice. These blue numbers here are also links, and they go right into the data. This is telling me that I had 28 veterans because I filtered over the veterans. I'm going to get to show you a little more filters in just a moment. We have the responses, and the responses show both a map view and a list view. Again, like I said, this is our demo, so we've had people testing this out all over the country. Almost. I think we need some people in Utah. Oh, we have people in Utah and Wyoming to join in. But this is each time a survey is submitted, it lands as a pinpoint, and then they can also cluster. Each survey also has a shapefile. Each activity, also has a shapefile associated with it. Sort of randomly today, we selected the state of Massachusetts as a shapefile for the demo region. I can show you that here. So if you're an administrator, well, as we set you up, we create your map. And you can select a whole state or a continuum, counties, census tract, block groups, etc., as your shape files to show. This is also where account administrator would add the setup key, and really importantly, would change the status of an account. You can also change the status of an account from testing to active here, which the administrators will do. As folks are working in Counting Us, if the activity is in a testing phase, those surveys don't get added into the report. So people can test and train away, and then when it's go time, the administrator will make it active. So responses are both in the map view. They can also be in the list view. And this is where that user information is captured as well. Whether you're in a map view or a list view, you can filter the data. And yep, the app will show the users if they're in testing mode, so they don't have to worry about it. You can filter the data by a number of different data elements here, and you can include archived or just the active responses as well. You can export the data based on everything or just on what's filtered. And you can also customize the fields that you want to include in your export. So you could take out name, for example, if that's something that you had and not include it. From the map view, just getting back here on the export format is in CSV. It's a CSV file. If you need to update a record, so somebody is calling from the field that they in fact did submit a duplicate record or something else happened, you can go ahead and select that and then open up that record. You can see I didn't even have an age range here. So I'm going to estimate if they're an adult. The location is fine, and I'm going to go ahead and save that record. Now it's been updated. So if people are calling in changes to surveys throughout the count as they happen, and whoever's watching the command center is making those changes, you're good to go. If at the end of the night, each of the regional administrators make sure that all of the volunteers have submitted all of the drafts on their phone and have nothing left on paper and everybody is checked out, then that person is good to go. From this view, we can also create layers. So I just imposed the Massachusetts counties, and this also is filtering the data. So now in Norfolk County, where our offices are, there are 23 responses, and it toggles off and on. And then from here, you can also create that report, again, just over those selected regions or over everything. Or you can filter it by another regional level. So in this way, if you are a large state or a balance of state and you've got mayors or local municipal officials and they want their own report, you would be able to give them a perfectly compliant HUD report just of their region. So here you have it, just a quick click, and your report is ready, whether you're running it over a filtered area such as this or over an entire COC. So the questions you're going to have is, what are you going to do with all of your time? Because the data cleanup is so easy. And if people are really on it and paying attention, your data could be cleaned up literally that very night, depending on your scope. So it goes through everything. So this is, again, it grabs those age ranges and the other variables and pulls it directly into the report. From here, you can download a PDF and send that to stakeholders. You can export the results, and I'll show you that. But again, right here, just as in the command center, you have the opportunity to see if you've got one child, you can see exactly who that person is. And you can go ahead and open the record and change that record in the command center. So, and then you run the report again, and it will have the updated information. Before I show you how the users and teams break out, I know that there were some both questions and responses in the chat. So Matt's telling folks, feel free to go ahead and register and use the setup key of demo. And you can do that at any time, either while I'm speaking or later on. If you've told me you've done so and you want to see it in the command center, I just need to know where you are so I can find it. Counting, yes. There's also everything that I showed you on the app is also available in the web version, which is www.counting.us. So that includes registering an account and entering testing data, etc. And as I mentioned, when users log in, they'll know if they're in a testing mode or not. It provides a lot of flexibility for training. I know you recommend access to may be limited, max number of people. No, there's not a maximum number of people who can have access. It's really just a matter of, you know, what makes sense for you and your region. A manager will have access to this part, the map and the list, and they would be able to open up records and change data. Only the administrator will have access to this screen where they can change the status of the count, change the setup key, etc. If you are using the sheltered survey, you would go ahead and enter your projects here. And we start by adding organizations and then entering the projects and the project type. Because sheltered surveys, you have to select if it's an emergency shelter, transitional housing, or safe haven. So we have those here as well. We did add permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing as options so that it could be used for the housing inventory chart as well. All right, I'm going to keep showing you then some of these other features that we have. So you saw those users and teams when users sign in, they can associate themselves with a team. Again, this is an added feature. Those teams are managed here, and we can add teams. And then within each team, you can assign a team area. We can add a new shapefile layer to a particular team. There are users. These users were added either when they registered, or the administrator can also come in here and add users to a particular team. We also have the ability to assign team-level administrators. And what this does is allow certain users with this role to log into the command center, but only see the surveys of the members of their team have submitted. So it's a way to provide some local control without exposing all of the data for the count. It's been helpful in some of the very large regions, large balance of state, where people feel very far away from the capital city where this is all taking place. And finally, the last feature I want to share with you is the sampling setup. This can be used for really large count areas where you want to apply a sampling method. These are all of the block groups, the census block groups here in Massachusetts. It looks like big black blobs, but it actually does break down a bit. And then for each block group, you can assign it whether or not it's a low or high probability and whether or not to sample it. So if it's a high probability, it gets sampled. If it's a low probability, it may or may not get sampled. We do have a lot of information about this. It sounds like people are leaving. We have a lot of information about this available on our website, and we can talk to you more about it as well. Are there questions about Command Center that I haven't addressed? It sounds like there was a question. How do older volunteers who are not tech savvy handle this? It's an excellent question. And we do answer it on our FAQs as well. I could read Matt's response. I think actually the benefits of going mobile for recruiting volunteers seems to be outweighing the setbacks or the barriers. It does. I've talked to a number of administrators who feel like going mobile is going to help them recruit people because it seems a little more, a little more pleasant than maybe a clipboard and paper. For older volunteers or people who are really don't like technology, I think there are a couple of things. One, I think that sometimes I've also heard regional leaders who don't like technology and therefore kind of dissuade volunteers from using it. I think that might be your first area to sometimes get through. You want to make sure your regional or your team leaders or whoever they are on board. But if you have people who aren't comfortable with it, we've heard a lot that often it's helpful to have two people engaging with somebody anyway, somebody with a conversation, and then somebody else entering information, so you can divide and conquer or split skills a little bit and have somebody talking to the person while somebody else is entering that information in the app. Julie's asking, no, Julie, once the survey is submitted, it leaves the phone altogether. So they don't even have to get rid of the app. My app has stayed on my phone for years. Nothing happens to it. At the end of the count, you can archive the activity. And that means that any additional surveys that are submitted are also excluded from the report. Can Command Center users theoretically have access to the Command Center forever? We sign agreements that are for a year, typically. But theoretically have access forever? I guess so.
Wow.
And have access to data. Matt, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's an annual contract, and so for regions that have been working with us for years, several years in a row, they continue to have access to their data because it's their data. But if you ever wanted to part ways, you have the ability to export that data into that CSV format that Heidi showed you, and it's yours. But no, you wouldn't have continued access in the Command Center. 3 years from now, we weren't working together. And then the other part too, like if any previous county administrators happen to be on and can speak to their experiences, I know we've got a few that might have dialed in to try to find out what the updates are. Please chime in because I think it is good for people to hear firsthand, especially things about like working with some people of the elderly population that might not have smartphones, and how you got through that. So if there's any brave souls out there that want to speak up, great, by all means. And then to Julie's point, like I was saying, if you delete the app, the data's gone. The data's gone as soon as they hit submit. So you don't even have to delete the app for the data to disappear.
But it's always in the command center.
Exactly, it stays in the command center. For sure. Yes.
So yes, even if it's
and thanks, Colin.
down
Yeah,
the road, and we're not working together, we can still get your data. I know we have some good veteran users on the call. So while you're mustering up your courage, I just want to kind of summarize and recap. So the planning stage, I think, kind of has two stages. There's the stage right now where we might be working with you to figure out kind of the scope of your contract and custom surveys, and are you sampling, and are you using count teams, and maybe not, what does that look like, and having those kinds of conversations. Once we're good to go and we have those contracts in place and the administrators are set up, the second level of planning goes into place, and where you would enter in any project information and then organizing your regional leads and planning those trainings for them and for their volunteers, and we would work with you through that as well. And I didn't really show off some of our resources, but we have print resources and others available to help you with that stage. During the count, administrators really are going to be monitoring the command center, regional leads. It's going to be really important that you're in touch with your volunteers as you need them, as they need to be. You're going to want to make sure, at the end of the count that everything's been submitted. I know we have some really rural continuums with us today on the call. Your folks are going to have a lot of drafts because the app will capture the information, but they won't be able to actually submit it without self-service or the internet. So, that's a lot of the things that happen during the count, a lot of communication back and forth. Records are getting updated, volunteers are being contacted, et cetera. And then after the count, it's all about the command center and maybe a little bit of cleanup through the app or the web. It's all about updating records, archiving records, cross-referencing things, just making sure it's all clean, and then working with your various stakeholders to get them the data and the reports that they need. If we're doing analysis with you, we're going to be wanting to get the results out. We also do have the ability to use the results, those results files that are similar to the results files that we have for, the APR and CAPR that get uploaded into Sage, and these results files can be used in a similar way. So it's not identified information, and it can be used to help generate a final HUD report along with data from HMIS, DV, et cetera. All right. The drill down functionality is definitely awesome. Anybody on the call want to chime in about their experiences? What did I miss, folks? What's the one thing that I should have mentioned? Really?
Yeah, you were really comprehensive. I think one thing that people might want to know too is that we're not just sending you out with an app and saying good luck. I mean, there's all this training up front. I mean, even these webinars, they're an informal way to train people ahead of time. But we'll offer more training and assistance leading up to the night of the count. Like you said, you can actually use the app ahead of time and put it into test mode. So, if there is any apprehension in the community of using it, just get started earlier and do a field testing and use that as a chance to get to learn what works and what doesn't. You have a window of time. It only takes us about a day to go from contract to getting you set up into the system. Typically, the holdup isn't on our end. It's the administrative hoops you have to go through in your region. So once we get the agreement signed, and if you do know an agreement, it's just a simple email. You can send it to I think probably the best would be sales@simtechsolutions.com. And we'll get you out an agreement with pricing and answer any questions you have. But yeah, once we have something, it's pretty quick to turn it around. And then the other side of it is during the night of the count or the morning, some people you get different regions that do different things. We staff a virtual help desk. So the way it works, just to make it easier on ourselves and avoid too much noise, is we'll have each region have designated contacts. And those people are the ones to triage any support requests through to us. But so they know what to escalate and what, a lot of things they can answer on their own. But the idea of this is it should be intuitive and easy to use. So, typically our help desk is surprisingly quiet, even though we had, close to 20,000 surveys come in last year.
Becky's saying nice things. Becky, you can unmute if you want to actually say those things. But thank you.
Thank you, Becky. You've always been a good advocate for our work. Appreciate it.
Down in Virginia. All right.
On that note, too, for people that have used it in the past, we are listening. So, the conditional logic that's coming in for the surveys, that came from you. Required fields, that came from you. So if you have any other ideas of how we can make this better, just let us know. We still have time to make changes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, again, like I said, this is the go-to page for everything. If you need to get in touch with us, you can just come here and contact us and go ahead and let us know who you are, and we'll get back in touch with you right away.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time
Thanks so
today.
much for your time.
Good luck
Feel
with
free
your
to reach out anytime.
Okay.
Good job, buddy.
Thank you.